Hello, homeroom students. My name is Mr. Lelinski, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to our first discussion of Bryan Stevenson's book, Just Mercy. As we begin our discussion of this text, I think it's important to ask, who are we to have this discussion, and who am I to lead this portion of it? It is important for me to recognize that this book does not represent my life and experience, and that as a white male, my leading a discussion on this text might seem kind of odd. However, one of the reasons I'm happy to teach at DSHA is because of the Salvatorian values our institution holds. In case you are unaware, the delegated responsibilities of the Sisters of the Divine Savior demand that we as a school community improve the quality of life, promote justice, serve in solidarity with the poor, collaborate, and practice responsible stewardship. In many ways, Just Mercy exists as a text to challenge our own notions of ourselves, our communities, our world, or the world around us. If we are lucky, these challenges lead to fruitful growth individually, as a homeroom, and as a whole school community. I hope that this growth inspires change for the better in ourselves to live the delegated responsibilities of the Sisters of the Divine Savior to make meaningful change in the world around us. As we begin this conversation, it is important to remember that we will make mistakes in this conversation, but that the conversation is tremendously important nonetheless. Each of us must operate from a place of respect and love for one another, and we must expect that our peers are acting in the same way. If we can do these things, we can engage in meaningful conversation and expect much growth in our experience with Just Mercy this year. It's because of all of these reasons that I am excited to begin the conversation about Bryan Stevenson's Just Mercy in homeroom with you today in hopes that we can come together in change for good. Let us now reach back and remember the plot points from the first two chapters of Just Mercy as we begin our activities for today. Chapter 1, entitled Mockingbird Players, introduces us to Bryan Stevenson and Walter Macmillan. Stevenson outlines the economic and social conditions of Walter's life and the circumstances that lead to his identification as a murder suspect, and he introduces us to Walter as he meets him on death row in Alabama. He draws parallels in this chapter to Harper Lee's much celebrated classic novel To Kill a Mockingbird, where white attorney Atticus Finch defends Tom Robinson, a black man accused of raping a white woman. In Chapter 2, entitled Stand, Stevenson recounts his early cases as a lawyer involving inhumane prison conditions, the death of Loretta Ruffin in police custody, and the death of a Gadsden teenager at the hands of Gadsden police, and the way in which those concerns relate to what Stevenson calls the presumption of guilt assigned to the poor and people of color. Stevenson concludes this chapter by telling a story about Medals of Honor that launched him onto his path of practicing in Alabama, which ultimately leads to the founding of the Equal Justice Initiative. As we enter into discussion of Stevenson's text, first we must evaluate our own readiness for this discussion. With that in mind, I ask you to please take out your Just Mercy notebooks. These can be whole notebooks dedicated to the project we embark on today, or they can be a part of a notebook you will have with you when we discuss Just Mercy. Please take 7 to 10 minutes to journal on the following questions. The first question is, where do I come from, and how does that affect how I approach this conversation? The second question is, what can I do to ensure that I engage in the conversation about Just Mercy and related topics or events respectfully and with an open mind? And the third question is, how can we as a community discuss race, socioeconomic status, and systemic racism in America, and what do you hope to gain from this conversation? Please take some time right now to respond to those questions. At this point in time, you should be concluding your journals and entering into small group discussion with your peers. The goal for this discussion should be conversation flowing from your written responses. Though it might feel awkward to engage in deep discussion at this point in time, especially because this is our first attempt at doing so in homeroom, it is essential that we all practice engaging in meaningful dialogue at this point and do more than simply read our responses to each other. This is our first opportunity to act on those delegated responsibilities and to engage in the difficult conversations this text encourages us to have. Please take an opportunity to do that now. You should be working on this for the next 7 to 10 minutes. Homeroom teachers, please feel free to pause the video at this time to allow students to discuss their responses in small groups. Thank you for taking some time to share your thoughts in small groups. I hope it went very well for all of you. Homeroom teachers, at this point in time, we need your help to facilitate the larger group discussion of a few questions around the first chapters of Just Mercy. Please use the slides shown in the PowerPoint for chapters 1 and 2 to do so. Students, remember, be open, listen, and operate from a place of respect and love, and have a great discussion. In case you are looking for additional activities to dig into these topics a little bit more, I have provided for you a couple of research suggestions that you can choose to engage in now or on your own time that are actually a part of a reading guide provided by the publishers of Just Mercy. Please feel free to research incarceration rates for other wealthy nations and share that information that compares how long people serve for various crimes, comparing other nations to the United States. You can choose to research the case of Loving versus Virginia, which is about interracial marriage, or you could choose to research response to police misconduct in the United States. Based on your information, determine what approaches are effective means of reducing police brutality and increasing accountability.